The sky over Denver was gray, not because of clouds, but because the air still carried dust from old storms. The city was no longer a city. It was a pile of broken buildings and forgotten roads. Trees tried to grow through cracks in the ground, and vines climbed up what was left of walls. No one lived here anymore, or so most people thought. Daniel Harper walked through the ruins with his backpack full of tools and food. He had grown up in the wastelands, born after the Exodus. His parents had told him stories about the time before. The world changed. They said that once humans had flown to the stars, but they also said that those same humans had left Earth behind. Daniel didn't believe all of it at first. He thought maybe it was just a story adults told to make the hard life seem better. But then he found something strange, a metal door hidden under layers of dirt and stone. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years, maybe decades. He cleared away the dust with his hands and saw markings on the door. Strange symbols, not like any language he knew. Still, there was a handle. He pulled. It didn't move. He pushed. Nothing. He took out a small tool from his bag and started working on the lock. It was old, but not broken. After some time, he heard a click. The door creaked open slowly, releasing a puff of stale air. Inside, it was dark. Daniel turned on his flashlight and stepped inside. It wasn't just a room. It was a whole building, buried beneath the ground. He walked down a hallway lined with metal walls. Everything was quiet except for the sound of his boots echoing on the floor. He passed doors marked with numbers and letters. Some were open. Most were closed. At the end of the hall was a large room filled with machines covered in dust. Monitors sat silent. Wires hung from the ceiling like vines. In the middle stood a desk with papers scattered across it. Daniel picked one up. It was old, yellowed, and torn at the edges. The writing was faded, but he could read parts of it. Project Echo. Final test successful. Energy source stable. Ready for global deployment. He flipped through more pages. There were diagrams of machines, maps of cities, and reports about climate change. One line caught his eye. If launched as planned, this technology could reverse planetary collapse within 10 years. Daniel stared at the paper. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. This place had held something important, something powerful, and someone had shut it down. He kept searching. Deeper into the building, he found a room with a computer still standing. Its screen was cracked, but the power button still worked. He pressed it. After a few seconds, lights flickered. A fan hummed. Then the screen blinked on. It asked for a password. Daniel frowned. He tried typing random letters. Nothing worked. He looked around the room for clues. On a nearby shelf, he found a notebook labeled Access Codes. He flipped through it. There were dozens of entries. He tried one. Echo 77. The screen flashed green. Access granted. Now the real work began. He clicked through files, trying to understand what he was seeing. There were videos, documents, and messages sent between people who had worked here. He watched one video. An older man with tired eyes spoke directly into the camera. "This is Dr. Alan Cruz," the man said. "If you're watching this, it means the system still works. I don't know how many years have passed since we were silenced, but I hope you've come looking for answers. Earth was never beyond saving. We had the solution. But the powers that be decided it was too risky. They chose to leave instead of fight." Daniel sat back, stunned. So it was true. Earth had not died because it couldn't be saved. It had died because the people in charge had given up. They had taken their ships and gone to the stars, leaving billions behind. He kept reading. There were blueprints for machines that could clean the air, purify water, and restore soil. There were plans for satellites that could regulate weather and prevent droughts. All of it had been built. All of it had worked. And then it had been buried. Daniel copied as much data as he could onto a small drive he carried. He needed to show this to someone. He needed help understanding what it all meant. When he finally left the underground building, the sun was low in the sky. The wind blew gently through the broken streets. He stood at the entrance, holding the drive in his hand. For the first time, in his life he felt something other than survival. He felt purpose. He packed his things and started walking. He knew where he had to go. To the east, past the mountains, there was a settlement called Haven Ridge. That's where his sister lived. Linda Morales was a scientist. She studied plants and how to bring them back to life in the dead soil. If anyone could help him understand what he had found, it was her. The journey would take days, maybe weeks. But Daniel didn't care. For the first time, he had hope. Earth had been abandoned, but Earth had never given up. Daniel walked for days through dry land and broken roads. The wind blew dust into his face and the sun beat down hard during the day. At night it got cold, and he wrapped himself in a thin blanket under the stars. He followed old maps and remembered paths from stories his parents told him when he was small. At last he reached the hills near Haven Ridge. Smoke rose from chimneys. Lights flickered in windows. Trees grew taller here, and green plants covered the ground. It felt like another world compared to the ruins he had come from. Haven Ridge was not big. It had only a few hundred people living there. But it was safe. People worked together. They farmed, built homes, and tried to grow life back where it had died. Daniel passed through the wooden gate at the edge of town. A man with a rifle nodded at him. "Back again, Harper?" the guard asked. Daniel smiled. "Yeah, just came home." He walked through the quiet streets until he reached a small building made of bricks and wood. A sign above the door read, "Green Lab, entry by permission only." He knocked. A woman opened the door. She wore a lab coat covered in dirt and carried a clipboard. "Linda," Daniel said. She looked surprised. Then she dropped the clipboard and ran forward, hugging him tightly. "You look terrible," she said, pulling back. "You always say that," he laughed. Inside, the lab was full of plants. Some were in pots. Others grew in long trays filled with soil. There were lights hanging from the ceiling, shining like fake suns. Linda had spent years trying to bring life back to dead Earth. "You didn't come all this way just to visit," she said, closing the door behind him. Daniel took out the small drive from his pocket and placed it on the table. "I found something," he said. "Something big." Linda raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She plugged the drive into the computer on her desk. Files began loading. She scrolled through them slowly, eyes wide. "This is," she whispered. "This isn't just old tech. This is advanced, really advanced." Daniel sat next to her. "Tell me what you see." She pointed at one file. "This shows how to clean air. Not just filters or masks. Real lasting change. If we use this, we could make the sky clear again." She clicked. Another file. "And this?" "This tells us how to purify water so it stays clean forever. No sickness, no poison." Daniel leaned closer. "What else?" Linda kept reading. "There are plans for machines that can turn dead soil into good soil again. We wouldn't have to wait years for nature to fix itself. We could speed it up." Daniel stared at the screen. "So why wasn't this used before?" Linda shook her head. "I don't know, but if this is real, then Earth wasn't doomed. It was sabotaged. They worked for hours, going through every file." Linda translated the technical language into simple terms. Daniel helped her understand how the machines worked. Together, they pieced together a picture of what Earth had once had, and what had been taken away. By morning, they had printed out pages of notes and diagrams. Linda showed them to other scientists in the settlement. At first, people were doubtful. "You're saying we had the power to save the planet and no one used it?" one man asked. "That's what the files say," Linda replied. "And you trust this?" another woman asked, looking at Daniel. Daniel nodded. "I found it myself. Buried underground. Hidden. Someone didn't want anyone to find it." That night, a meeting was held in the main hall of Haven Ridge. People gathered around tables lit by lanterns. Linda stood at the front with Daniel beside her. "We found proof," she said, holding up the papers. "Earth wasn't beyond saving. We had the tools, but those in charge chose to leave instead of fight. Murmurs spread through the room. One man stood. If this is true, then we've been living a lie. We thought we were the last ones. That Earth was dying because it couldn't be saved. But now we know better, Linda said. Now we can do something. Daniel stepped forward. We can start here. We can build the machines, clean the air, heal the land, bring life back. People looked at each other. Some nodded, others frowned. An older woman spoke. Even if we believe you, where would we get the parts? The materials. Most of it was taken or destroyed. Daniel smiled. Not everything was taken. Some things were left behind, and some things we can make ourselves. The meeting went late into the night. Plans were made. People volunteered. Scientists offered to help rebuild the tech. Farmers wanted to test the soil machines. Engineers talked about fixing old machines they had stored away. Hope was growing. Over the next weeks, teams traveled to old storage sites and forgotten labs. They searched for pieces of the past. Some places were empty. Others still had useful parts hidden away. In time, they built their first machine, a small air purifier based on the designs from the drive. They placed it in the center of Haven Ridge. Within days, the air smelled cleaner. The sky seemed clearer. More machines followed. Water filters were built. Soil testers were made. Life started to return. But the biggest discovery came when Linda noticed something strange on the drive. One file had not been fully decoded. It's locked behind another password, she said. Daniel frowned. Try the same one we used before. Echo 77. Linda typed it in. The screen blinked red. Access denied. She tried other combinations. Nothing worked. Then Daniel remembered something from the video he had watched in the underground lab. Dr. Alan Cruz had said, "If you're watching this, it means the system still works. I don't know how many years have passed since we were silenced, but I hope you've come looking for answers." Daniel tapped the screen. Maybe it's not a normal password. Maybe it's a message. Linda looked confused. What if the answer is in what he said? Daniel asked. She played the video again. They listened carefully. I hope you've come looking for answers. Daniel snapped his fingers. Answers. He typed it in. Access granted. New files appeared. Videos. Messages. One video played automatically. Dr. Cruz spoke again. If you've made it this far, you've seen what we built. But there's more. Much more. Orbiting above us, hidden in silence, are systems waiting to wake up. Satellites designed to regulate climate, repair damage, and watch over the planet. They were never shut down. Just put to sleep. Daniel and Linda stared at the screen. They're still up there, Linda whispered. Daniel grinned. Then let's wake them up. But sending a signal to space was not easy. They needed a transmitter strong enough to reach orbit. They needed power. They needed knowledge. They decided to send word to others. Across the wasteland, small groups of survivors lived in scattered settlements. Some were farmers, some were engineers, some were radio operators who still sent messages through the static. Using old radios, Linda and Daniel sent out a call. We have found the truth. Earth was not doomed. We can heal it. We need your help. Join us. The response was slow at first. Then more voices answered. From the north, a group of builders responded. From the east, a team of radio experts. From the west, a former satellite technician who had once worked for a lost company. They began to gather. Week by week, people arrived in Haven Ridge. Some came alone. Some came in small trucks or on foot. They brought tools, knowledge, and hope. Together, they began work on the next step, finding a place to send a signal into space. They needed a launch site, an old satellite dish, a control center, and they knew exactly where to go. To the old spaceport, buried beneath sand and time. Daniel stood on a hill outside Haven Ridge, looking toward the horizon. He held the drive in his hand one last time. Earth had been abandoned. But Earth had never given up, and now neither would they. In a quiet corner of deep space, far from the dying suns and drifting asteroids, floated a world not born of nature, but of human will. It was called New Haven, one of many colony worlds built by those who had left Earth behind. Towering cities rose from red soil, farms glowed under artificial sunlight. The sky was clear, the air clean, and the people lived without fear of storms or drought. Life was good here, for those who had made the journey. Among them lived an old man named Marcus Bell. He was tall and thin, with gray hair and tired eyes. Once he had been a diplomat, trusted by leaders and feared by enemies. Now he spent his days walking through gardens and reading old messages from Earth. He missed it sometimes, not the dust or the broken roads, but the feeling of standing on real ground. Earth had been home once, but no one talked about it anymore. The young ones didn't even know its name. One evening, as the twin moons rose over New Haven, Marcus sat in his office. A soft light blinked on his desk. His terminal had received a message. Incoming signal, unknown source. Marcus frowned. He tapped the screen. The message opened slowly, filled with static and broken words. We are still here. Earth is alive, that we can heal it. His breath caught. He played it again and again. Impossible, he whispered. Earth had been abandoned more than 60 years ago. Everyone knew that. It had been left behind because it was broken beyond repair. That was what the history book said. That was what the leaders taught. But now this signal suggested something else. Marcus stood up quickly. He walked across the room and pressed a button on the wall. Send me to the council hall, he said. A few minutes later, he arrived at the great hall of the Virex Conquered, the ruling body of all human colonies. Inside, leaders from different worlds gathered around a large table. They wore fine clothes and spoke in calm voices. Most were younger than him. He stepped forward and placed the message on the central screen. Everyone looked at it. What is this? Asked a woman with dark skin and sharp eyes. A signal, Marcus said. From Earth. Silence filled the room. That's not possible, said another leader. Earth is gone. We left it behind when the planet died. It wasn't dead, Marcus replied. Not then, not now. He clicked again. More data appeared, satellite readings, old video logs, even maps showing green land returning to places that should have been deserts. This isn't fake, Marcus said. They're still there, and they've been working to fix the planet. Some leaders shook their heads. This could be a trap, said a man with a cold voice. We don't know who sent it. Could be pirates. Could be raiders trying to trick us. Or it could be truth, Marcus said. We owe it to ourselves to find out. No, said the woman with sharp eyes. We have our own problems, our own wars. We don't need to go chasing ghosts. Marcus looked around the room. No one supported him. He sighed. I'll go myself, he said. They laughed. You're too old, said the cold-voiced man. You won't make it back. I don't need permission, Marcus said. I'm retired. I can do what I want. He turned and walked out of the hall. Later that night, he stood alone in a docking bay. His ship was small, older than most, but still strong. He had kept it for emergencies. This was one. He loaded supplies, food, water, tools, a message recorder. Then he climbed inside. The engines hummed to life. The bay doors opened, and the ship lifted off into the stars. Weeks passed. The trip was long, space was empty and cold, but Marcus kept going. At last he reached the edge of the old solar system, what was left of it. He saw Mars first, silent and frozen, then Venus, still burning. Jupiter loomed like a giant eye watching him. Then came Earth. It looked different. The blue oceans were clearer. Green land stretched where there had once been only dust. Clouds moved gently over the surface. He stared at it in disbelief. They really did it, he whispered. He flew closer. He scanned for signals, found one. Weak, but real. He sent a reply. This is Marcus Bell, former diplomat of New Haven. I come in peace. There was silence. Then, after a long time, a voice answered. This is Linda Morales. Welcome to Earth. Back on Earth, Daniel stood beside Linda in the control room of the old spaceport. Monitors flickered with strange lights. Wires ran across the floor. Outside, wind blew over broken towers. They had found the place weeks ago, a forgotten launch site buried beneath sand and time. With help from engineers and builders, they had fixed parts of it, enough to send signals, enough to listen. Now, someone was listening back. Linda looked at Daniel. Do you believe it? Someone actually answered. Daniel nodded. Looks like we weren't as alone as we thought. They worked fast. They sent more messages, shared what they had learned, told the truth about Earth's past, about the tech they were rebuilding, about the machines waking up in orbit. Marcus responded carefully. He asked questions, tested their knowledge, watched their videos. At last, he believed. I'm coming down, he told them. Daniel and Linda prepared a landing zone. They cleared away rubble, marked the field with lights, waited. When the ship arrived, it was smaller than they expected. It landed with a low hiss. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, thin, tired eyes. He looked around, taking in the sky, the trees, the green grass. Then he smiled. You really brought it back, he said. Daniel walked forward. We're trying. Marcus held out his hand. Daniel shook it. I used to believe Earth was lost, Marcus said, but now I see it was never gone, just waiting. They led him to the lab, showed him the machines, the plants growing in dry soil, the water filters cleaning poison from rivers. Marcus listened, asked questions, took notes. At night they sat, outside near a fire. You left Earth, Daniel said. Why? Marcus sighed. We thought we had no choice. The leader said Earth couldn't be saved, that we had to leave before it was too late. But you were wrong, Linda said. We were lied to, Marcus agreed, by the same people who wanted power. They didn't want to fix the planet. They wanted to rule a new one. Daniel looked at the stars. What happens now? Marcus looked at him. Now we decide if we can trust each other again. Daniel nodded. Earth doesn't need saving, but maybe we can learn from each other. Marcus smiled. Maybe. Days passed. Marcus stayed longer than expected. He helped test machines. He shared knowledge from the colonies. He sent reports back to New Haven. Some leaders ignored them. Others read them carefully. And a few began to wonder. Could Earth truly be alive? Could it be worth returning to? But not everyone welcomed the idea. Some feared what Earth might bring. Disease, old ways, people who had been left behind and might be angry. So the message came back. Do not return. Do not share more. Forget Earth ever called. Marcus read the message and closed his eyes. He had a choice. Go back to the stars, or stay on Earth. He looked at Daniel, at Linda. He looked at the trees growing in the wind. I already chose, he said softly. He turned off the transmitter. He would not send another word to the colonies. Not yet. But soon, others would come. Earth had sent its call, and someone had heard. The sky over Haven Ridge was clear. Birds flew in quiet circles above the trees. Life had returned slowly but surely. In the distance, machines hummed softly as they cleaned water and filtered air. Green fields stretched where once there had been only dust. Inside the old spaceport control room, Daniel Harper stood with his hands on a dusty desk, watching the screen. A message blinked on it. We are landing in 1 hour. Daniel read it again. Then he looked at Linda Morales, who sat beside him, eyes tired but alert. "They're really coming," she said. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, they are." A few days earlier, Marcus Bell had sent a final message to New Haven before turning off his transmitter for good. He had told them the truth. Earth was alive. Earth had healed itself, and Earth didn't need saving. It offered something better. Some people in the colonies had listened, and now they were coming back. The ship landed just outside Haven Ridge. It was smaller than the ones that had taken people away from Earth so many years ago. Its metal body was worn, its paint faded, but it still flew. When the ramp came down, 3 figures stepped out. One was young, tall and strong, with short hair and sharp eyes. Another was older, wearing a uniform with symbols Daniel didn't recognize. The third was a woman, her face calm but watchful. Daniel and Linda walked forward to meet them. Behind them stood a small group of Earth's new leaders, engineers, farmers, scientists, and builders. Everyone wanted to see who had come back. The older man from the ship stepped forward first. "I am Captain Kevin Reyes," he said. "We come in peace." Daniel studied him. His voice was firm, but not harsh. Not like some of the stories he'd heard about the colony leaders. "We know who you are," Daniel said. "You left us behind." Kevin bowed his head slightly. "I wasn't born when Earth was abandoned. I've only read about it in history books." Linda crossed her arms. "Then maybe you should read more carefully." There was silence. Finally, Kevin looked around. "We want to learn what happened here. We want to understand how Earth survived." Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at Linda. She gave him a small nod. "Then come," he said. Over the next few days, the visitors from the stars walked through the green lands of Earth. They saw clean rivers running through valleys. They saw crops growing in soil that had once been dead. They watched machines turn dry land into fertile ground. They met children playing under trees. They saw animals that had almost gone extinct returning to the wild. At night, they gathered around fires and talked. Kevin asked questions. "How did you do this?" he asked one evening. Linda answered. "We worked. Hard. Every day. We used old tech we found buried underground. We built new machines. We learned from our mistakes." Daniel added, "We didn't wait for someone to save us. We saved ourselves." Kevin looked at his team. "Why didn't you reach out sooner?" Daniel frowned. "Because we thought no one would care. Because we thought you had forgotten us." Another visitor spoke, a younger woman named Natalie Green. "Not everyone forgot. Some of us always believed Earth could survive. But most didn't," Linda said. "Most of you chose to leave." Natalie looked down. "Yes, most did." Tensions began to rise. Some of the Earth settlers didn't trust the visitors. They remembered the pain of being left behind. They remembered stories of families torn apart when the last ships took off without them. In secret meetings, some argued that Earth should stay alone, that it had survived without help and should keep surviving that way. Others, like Daniel and Linda, believed differently. "We can learn from them," Linda said during one meeting. "They have knowledge we don't. Science, medicine, technology." "And what if they take more than they give?" an older man asked. "What if they try to rule us again?" "That won't happen," Daniel said. "Not if we make sure of it." Still, the distrust grew. Then came the mistake. One of the visitors, Natalie, entered a lab without asking. She wanted to study one of the new biotech tools they had built. She didn't mean harm, but to those watching, it looked like theft. She was stopped. Guards surrounded her. Daniel arrived quickly. She didn't mean to steal anything, he told them, but the damage was done. That night, Kevin came to Daniel. "We need to go," Kevin said, "before this turns into something worse." Daniel shook his head. "Don't run. Don't make it look like you're guilty." Kevin sighed. "We came in peace, but not everyone wants peace." Daniel looked at the campfires burning in the distance. He saw the fear in people's eyes, the anger. He knew Kevin was right. Before sunrise, the visitors packed their things. They said goodbye to the few people who had welcomed them. As they walked toward their ship, Daniel followed. "You can still stay," he said to Kevin. Kevin smiled sadly. "Maybe another time." Daniel handed him a small box. "This has everything we've built so far," he said. "Our tech, our plans, our hope." Kevin took the box. "Thank you." Daniel looked at Natalie. "Tell them the truth. Tell them Earth survived. Tell them we don't need saving. We need friends." Natalie nodded. "I will." The ramp closed. The engines roared to life. The ship lifted into the sky. Daniel and Linda watched it disappear into the clouds. Weeks passed. The visitors were gone, but their presence left marks. Some people still distrusted the idea of contact. Others started to wonder if Earth could be part of something bigger again. Daniel and Linda kept working. They rebuilt the lab where Natalie had been caught. They made new machines. They sent messages into space, not just signals, but real letters. Earth is alive, Earth remembers, Earth is ready to talk. They didn't know if anyone would listen, but they hoped. Back on New Haven, the small ship landed quietly. No crowds waited, no cameras filmed. Kevin and his team walked through empty halls. They had expected questions, maybe even praise. Instead, silence. The council called them in. "You went against orders," said the leader, a cold-eyed woman named Director Voss. Kevin stood tall. "We needed to see the truth." Voss leaned forward. "And what truth did you find?" Kevin opened the box Daniel had given him. He placed it on the table. "Proof," he said. "Earth is alive, Earth has healed, and Earth doesn't hate us." "Not yet." Murmurs spread through the room. Director Voss narrowed her eyes. "You brought alien technology onto our world." "It's not alien," Kevin said. "It's human, built by people we left behind." Voss looked at the others. "We must decide what to do with this knowledge." Some nodded. Others stayed, silent. Finally, Voss spoke again. "No more visits," she said. "No more contact. Earth is dangerous. We cannot risk it." Kevin stepped forward. "With all due respect, you're wrong." Silence. He looked around the room. "We ran from Earth because we were afraid, but now Earth is stronger than we are. If we close the door now, we may never open it again." Voss stared at him. Then she stood. "You are dismissed," she said. Kevin turned and walked out. Outside, the sky was red with sunset. He pulled out a small drive from his pocket, the one Daniel had given him. He had copied it before handing over the rest. He had one more message to send to the people of the colonies, not the leaders, the people. He typed, "Earth is alive, Earth is waiting, Earth is calling," and he pressed send. Time passed. The sky over Haven Ridge stayed clear most days. Trees grew taller. Birds returned. Life kept coming back to the land like a slow but steady wave. Daniel Harper stood on top of a hill outside the town. He looked out at the fields below. Crops swayed in the wind. Machines hummed softly as they cleaned water and filtered air. People worked with their hands in the soil, building something better. He smiled. Earth was alive. And now, it was ready for more. Back on New Haven, Kevin, Reyes sat alone in his small room. His message had gone out, not just to a few leaders or scientists, but to everyone. Earth is alive, Earth is waiting, Earth is calling. People read it. Then they talked, and talked, and talked. Some believed him. Some thought he was lying. Others were afraid. But slowly the idea took root. What if Earth wasn't a lost cause? What if it was home again? Weeks turned into months. More messages came from Earth. Videos, data, letters. Proof that life had returned without help from the RAR. Stars. Then came the first real question. Would you come back? It wasn't a demand. It was an offer. A chance. Kevin knew what he had to do. He found others who wanted to go. A few engineers, a doctor, a teacher, a farmer. They weren't rich. They weren't powerful. but they were willing to try. They built a ship, not fancy, not fast, but strong enough to make the journey, and they left. On Earth, Daniel and Linda watched the skies. They had sent many signals, many letters, many calls. Now they waited. One night, while sitting by a fire, Linda asked, "Do you think anyone will come back?" Daniel looked up at the stars. "I think some will," he said. "Not all, but some." Linda nodded. "And what happens when they do?" Daniel smiled. "We show them what we've built. We teach them what we've learned. And maybe we learn from them too." Linda laughed softly. "You always see the good in people." "I don't see the good," Daniel said. "I just believe in second chances." Months later, the signal came. "We are landing." Daniel ran to the control room. Linda followed. They watched as the small ship touched down outside Haven Ridge. It wasn't the same one that had come before. This one looked older, patched together with parts from different ships. When the ramp opened, a group stepped out. They were not soldiers, not leaders, just people. Kevin was there. So was Natalie. Behind them stood others, engineers, farmers, teachers. Daniel walked forward. Kevin saw him and smiled. "We're back," he said. Daniel held out his hand. Kevin shook it. "You brought friends," Daniel said. "We brought help," Kevin replied. Over the next weeks, the new visitors settled in. They worked with the people of Earth. They shared knowledge. They helped fix old machines. They learned how to grow food in tough soil. They studied the clean air and clean water. They also listened. Kevin told stories of the colonies, of cities floating in space, of farms lit by fake suns, of people who still feared Earth but also dreamed of it. "They're not ready yet," Kevin said one night, "but they're starting to ask questions." Daniel nodded. "That's all we need. Questions lead to answers. Answers lead to change." Natalie added, "Some people want to come here, but they're scared." "Of what?" Linda asked. "That Earth won't welcome them," Natalie said. Linda looked around, at the green fields, at the children playing, at the trees growing tall. "They'll be welcome," she said, "if they come in peace, if they want to help." Daniel agreed. Earth isn't angry, it's tired, tired of being forgotten, tired of being blamed. Kevin looked at him. "Then let's build something new." Daniel smiled. "We already are." News spread across the wastelands and settlements. Word of the return, word of the visitors, word of the changes. More people came to Haven Ridge, from faraway towns, from hidden labs, from places where survival had been the only goal. They brought tools, knowledge, hope. Together, they began work on the next step. They needed a place to meet, not just Earth people, not just colony people, everyone. They chose the old spaceport. With help from Kevin and his team, they rebuilt it. They made it bigger, stronger, safer. They named it New Beginnings. Back on New Haven, the message spread further. People read about Earth's recovery, about the machines, about the forests and rivers returning. Slowly, the fear began to fade. Some leaders still refused to believe, still called Earth a danger, still said it should be left alone. But the people didn't stop asking questions, and some started making plans. Groups formed, small ones at first, people who wanted to visit, to help, to see the world that had survived without them. They began building ships, not warships, not escape ships, journey ships, hope ships. One day, the first one would leave, and Earth would be waiting. At the edge of Haven Ridge, Daniel stood with Marcus Bell. Marcus had stayed behind. After the first visit, he had chosen Earth, chosen to live among those who had been left behind. He looked at the sky. "They'll come," he said. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, they will." Marcus turned to him. "What will you tell them when they do?" Daniel thought for a moment. "I'll tell them the truth," he said. that Earth was never doomed, that Earth never gave up, that Earth waited and healed and became stronger. Marcus smiled. Good answer. They stood in silence for a while. Then Daniel said, "We can't forget what happened. We can't pretend everything is perfect, but we can move forward, together." Marcus nodded. That's all any of us ever wanted. In the distance, the wind blew through the trees. Leaves rustled, birds sang. Life had returned, not because someone saved it, but because it never stopped. Trying, Earth had been abandoned, but Earth had never given up. And now neither would the stars.